Welcome back to episode 10 of Isle of Scáth. Can you believe next week is the last build episode of this series? Before you sink into a deep dark depression, do not fret. There is a new series coming. If you haven't seen Little Rock Ridge, perhaps go back and binge it now, ready for the sequel that's coming straight after this series. Anyway, stop talking about something that's not this. It's rude. Last week we added a little Nordic port and a flat ride. However, this week it's time to finish the castle as promised. In case you're not aware, the inspiration for this park is the level Isle of Scale from Hitman 2. In said map, the top of the castle is a modern glass penthouse. So you better believe I'm doing my own version of that. I used metal coaster supports as the base and a way to blend the old with the new. I placed our usual wooden floor because, well, it's nice. I wanted a nice high-level balcony that overlooks the park, which doubles as a smoking area. Fun fact, I have never smoked a single cigarette. Yes, I am an angel. Now, this might be extremely controversial to many people, but this section of the castle won't actually be accessible in-game. We will be using what's called our imaginations. This is the exclusive penthouse level and only accessible by elevator. As for fire safety, get back to me on that. After putting the final metal framework in place, I began with the glass. After neglecting health and safety thus far, I figured the least I can do is reinforce the windows. The pieces I used are, you guessed it, beams and arch shapes. I figured I'd make it a complete glass box by giving it a glass ceiling. I recreated the same custom fencing used elsewhere in the park to prevent silly heads from falling off the edge. And boom, just like that, there's a new ride. The idea of people rising up through the glass ceiling was an important one, whether we're talking aesthetics or otherwise. I gave that glass ceiling some extra support, as I felt it would inevitably come crashing down sooner or later, and wouldn't that be terrible? It occurred to me that the park was severely lacking in food and drink, so I decided to add a food hut in what's probably the most typical theme park styling you'll find in this park. I used the Haunted House wall pieces with the Haunted House beams for a trim. Can you believe it? Using Haunted House pieces for something other than a haunted house? Where will my creativity end? I used corrugated metal and tar pitch for the roofing, and then slapped some signage on the side. A cheeky little awning, and that's that build done. I don't mess about. I extended our existing plaza and popped down some more seating. If I know rich people, they sure do love zipping about in their helicopters. But helicopters can't land without a helipad. I created this using plaster, support pieces, basic shapes, and chain link fencing. It wouldn't be much of a landing spot if the pilots can't see where they're landing, so I added some appropriate lighting. I'm by no means an engineer, but I gave the pad what I assume is adequate support. I popped down an exclusive looking helicopter before making some steps out of facade scaffolding and hazard strips. Time to duplicate the whole thing and adjust the terrain accordingly. Would you believe me if I said we're adding a second flat ride? Well, you better bloody believe it, because I just did. With a drop tower in place, I made a start on some queue cover. As the queue goes directly under Nerd Chacho's coaster, it's vital we protect our guests. I made these using chain link fencing, pillars and planks. Have you noticed this is episode 10, and if you're watching this on the day of release, it's the 10th of December. Have you also noticed I'm just saying this to fill in the empty space? Well, you keep asking me to talk more in these videos, but that doesn't mean I have interesting things to say. For those of you watching this as a premiere, well done for having your life organised enough to be here for release. That takes dedication. If you're watching this after release, I'm not saying you're any less dedicated, but we all know the true fans are there for the premiere. In my humble opinion, I think it's important to avoid dead space in parks, even if that just means adding some foliage. I then use some terrain paint to darken some areas where the snow might have cleared. Finally, I whacked a cheeky barrier around our new ride. And there we have it, our castle complete, 2 new helipads, and 2 new flat rides, all in less than 15 minutes. Next week we will be finishing the park with another coaster, courtesy of another special guest. See you then.